Melbourne is a growing city with a current population of 5.4 million people. Since the 1880s, its tram network has grown to be the world's longest, with 250 kilometres of double track. This video shows how these tracks spread across Melbourne and includes some minor updates to my previous version. For layout purposes, part of the map has been moved to the left. Melbourne's first trams were a mixture of horse-drawn and cable-powered, but it was the cable trams that dominated. There was also a novel gas-powered tram for a short time. Most of the cable tramways were operated by a single transport company that won a monopoly contract. Its lines are shown here in red. As the cable lines continued to spread, a number of horse tramways were opened. Most were around the edges of the cable network, where passengers were fewer. Some were operated by the cable tram company, also shown in red, and others by smaller operators. The first electric tram operated from Box Hill to Doncaster. Then an independent cable line was opened in Northcote, shown here in yellow. But just as the cable network was nearing completion, the Australian economy was crippled by an economic depression in 1891. The tramways were squeezed and some tramway operators failed. As the economy recovered, electric tramways appeared in increasing numbers and were also confined to the edges of the cable network. They were operated by a variety of groups, indicated by the various colours. The largest was in the southeastern suburbs, shown here in brown. You'll also notice that many of the horse tramways were closing or being replaced with electric trams. But this fragmented approach to tramways did not suit the growing city of Melbourne. As even more lines were opened, it was clear that coordination was required, and a single tramways board would be the solution. The new Melbourne and Metropolitan Tramways Board quickly replaced most of the operators over the next 30 years. The board's lines are shown here in green and orange. But the Victorian Railways retained its electric lines, shown here in blue. Many short and longer extensions were then opened across the network. Some connected isolated lines, others extended lines into developing suburbs. Two longer lines were opened to West Brunswick and to St Kilda via South Melbourne. Now the replacement of the cable tram lines commenced, with Swanston Street and St Kilda Road converted to an electric tramway, giving electric trams access to the city. The Railways extended its line from Blackrock to Beaumaris. The Tramways Board continued to build more electric extensions and to replace more cable lines. These included the lines along Flinders Street and Bridge Road, and after a 2-year delay, along Collins Street, Victoria Street and Brunswick Street. Australia was again crippled by an economic depression, and the newly built Beaumaris line was replaced with buses. And as Melbourne recovered, buses were widely promoted as a cheaper alternative to electric trams. While some new electric lines were built, many of the remaining cable lines were closed and replaced with buses. These included the Port Melbourne line, the Collingwood line, and the Nicholson Street and Northcote lines. But the electric trams made a comeback during the Second World War because of fuel and vehicle shortages. The Commonwealth Government funded new electric lines to wartime industries in the western suburbs and to Essendon Aerodrome. And after the war, more electric lines were built, including Latrobe Street, a connection in Maidstone, and the replacement of the unsuccessful bus lines to Northcote and East Brunswick. But the growing popularity of the motorcar meant less people needed trams. The Railways replaced its Blackrock and Brighton Beach lines with buses. Then the Tramways Board relocated tracks to Park Street and replaced the Point Ormond and most of the Footscray lines with buses. Then tracks were relocated into Queensway and Northern Street for the new Arts Precinct. Until now, the tramways were self-funded, but from 1970, the government provided increasing subsidies, funding hundreds of new trams, line extensions, and eventually a new transit authority. A line to the airport was relocated, and extensions opened to East Burwood, and in stages to Bundoora. The neglected St Kilda and Port Melbourne railways were converted to light rail, and lines were extended to Airport West, Blackburn Road, in Spring Street for the City Circle, and to Bundoora RMIT. A competition model was then introduced in the hope of cutting financial losses. The network was divided between Yarra Trams and Swanston Trams, shown here in teal and orange, and franchised or contracted to two private companies. The track in Batman Avenue was relocated, and extensions opened to the new Docklands development and to Box Hill. But in 2004, the single network was restored when the operator of Swanston Trams handed back its contract, and Yarra Trams was made the sole operator. Extensions were then opened to Vermont South, to Waterfront City and along Collins Street West. The Domain Road track was relocated to Toorak Road, and recently in Maidstone, an access track was built for a new tram depot. This brings us to Melbourne's current tram network and to the question, will there be more extensions? There's been a number of proposals over recent years, and with government plans to increase the population in Melbourne's inner and middle suburbs, my guess is that the tram network will continue to expand. You can find more tramway history on the Melbourne Tram Museum website. You may wish to add your comments about future extensions in the section below. Thanks for watching.